Hello everybody, welcome back to Punk Right. My name is Smee. I am very excited today. I've had a very productive weekend and I'm happy to say I finished a very wholly and incomplete rough draft, but it is a rough draft of my new novel. The novel is a literary novel. Literary fiction is not something that I've written to great extent before, and if you've been following the channel, then you know that SCARBOYS, my first young adult dystopian novel, is a very different type of fiction, which we call genre fiction. As I wrote the literary fiction novel, I had to really understand what is the difference between those styles of writing and what makes good literary fiction. Stick around at Punk Right, we'll take a look. Don't go anywhere. I do spend a lot of my time writing, but as 99.9% of all writers out there, there is no way I can actually make a living with it. So I am a teacher and educator, and I've spent a lot of my last 22 years in education teaching literature and philosophy at upper high school level. I've really learned a lot about, what literature is and what makes it good. But it doesn't mean that you can actually write it out. What is that difference of, or what are the nuances of literary fiction that makes it such so that people have this need to talk about it in terms of longevity? When we look at genre fiction is, for the most part, pure entertainment. It's fun. There are certain skill sets that go along with creating genre fiction and even things like movies and understanding arcs. Those are very scripted and clear. Literary fiction has much more flexibility to it, and it doesn't really follow the same path of writing exploration that you would do in genre fiction. I want to take a look at four what I believe are the main key factors that define literary fiction, and if you're interested in writing literary fiction, these are some things that you're going to want to pay attention to and get them right in the story that you're trying to tell. The list I'm going to give you today is not an exclusive list, but I believe that there is a very clear hierarchy to talking about literature. I'm going to start at the top and work my way down these four elements. The most important, which is why we consider literature and why we continue to talk about it year after year, decade after decade, and even centuries later, is that there is some sort of analysis or critique or perception of the society or the social structure in which your story is taking place. Good literature is a social critique. If you're thinking about writing literary fiction, your character's interaction cannot and is never in isolation. The world is its reality, and that reality is the social construct that defines how this character is going to act or react in this world. Understanding those elements of society that are going to press the buttons of your character is what's really going to drive him or her into action. It's quite often that we see some sort of political struggle within that society. Politics is the interaction of men and women living together, and those forces are always either pressing on each other or pulling each other apart so that your character is caught in the middle. I studied politics and I studied political philosophy, and this is why I believe I really enjoyed writing this last piece, this last novel that I put together, because I feel so connected to that, and it's something that I know and feel comfortable about. What are those elements that you feel comfortable about as a writer that you feel like you really want to critique? Think about that. That's going to make your story stronger. Okay, second on that list of hierarchy is, of course, the character itself. All good literature has some sort of critique or exploration of the human condition. All of your experiences as a writer, all of the experiences that you've observed in your lifetime can somehow be incorporated into this character that you're trying to build. Thinking about how that character interacts with society, how he or she functions, how he or she is pulled apart, is really going to give us some sort of sense of who we are as individuals. That is good literature. Who are we? Why are we here? How do we function together? How do we act and react with each other? How do we learn to live together? How do we become nihilists and create something that is ours and only ours as individuals? That is the human condition. In some way, it's like this scream into the world that says, hey, I am here, I want to be heard. Good literature allows your character to somehow define him or herself in this world. That's why it's fun. I think you really have to think about who you are to be able to write good literature. Which, again, for me, as I went through this process of writing the banknotes, I really had to settle back into myself and understand a lot of the experiences that I've had in my life and make sense of them so that my character could also, manifest them into the story. It's a bit scary sometimes, but goddamn, was that fun. It's terribly interesting. Thirdly, I think that the last one leads quite well into an aspect of literature, which is the internal struggle. The internal struggle is defining of literature. Your characters find their human condition because of something that is internally messing with them. It's something that they have to grapple with, they have to come to terms with. Now, I'm not talking about the Dan Brown types of internal struggles, because all characters in all literature are going to have some sort of motives that they find in each other, but specifically the internal struggles that help us learn about ourselves, help us learn about humanity, about people, what they do, why they act as they do, and good literature is really going to demonstrate this effectively. One of the stories that really comes to mind is one of my favorite literary authors is J.M. Coetzee, South African writer who lives in Australia, but he's actually South African. And all of his stories take place, again, in South Africa. South Africa as a social construct must be a very difficult place. I've never been or visited, but everything I hear about it just sounds like it's constant struggle on so many different levels. In the book Disgrace, Coetzee's character has to deal with just that. Some element of emotion, the feeling of disgrace. And the story, thematically, is bound by that, which you're going to find in good literature. Finally, I want to talk about the last component, I guess, of good literature. The beauty or a certain flexibility of language that literary authors have in how they can put their story out there. You have the most ability to break rules in literary genre. Within genre fiction, you're kind of I don't want to say you don't have no liberty at all, but you're more bound by grammatical rules, and you want things to look good and feel good because of the accessibility for certain age groups or stylistic requirements. But in literary fiction, you can literally let that go out the door. Look at Jose Saramago's dialogue, and his whole idea was the destruction of dialogue and not representing it on the page as it should be grammatically, but as we actually naturally speak. And his ability to do that is what creates a certain beauty and fluidity in his stories that really sucks you in. That stylistic device, I think, is really expected in the literary genre, and when exploited well, creates something that is unique and beautiful. Even if you're writing something that you feel comfortable with, I would encourage you to read literature, but also to practice writing, even if it's short stories, because you might be surprised at what you find out about yourself, which for me was the true joy of writing the banknotes. Stick around as this book continues to evolve and I share more about it. Until then, you just know what to do. You just keep writing. Punk write.